Hey everyone, today we are diving into something that might not be the most exciting dinner conversation, but it is absolutely crucial for protecting your loved ones, and that is called a binding death nomination. If you have super, and most of us do, this episode could save your family from unnecessary stress, conflict, and financial heartache down the track. So grab a cuppa, settle in, and let's talk about what a binding death nomination is and whether you actually need one. So let's start with the basics. A binding death nomination is a legal document that tells your super fund exactly who should receive your superannuation when you pass away. Think of it kind of like a will, but this is specifically for your super only. And here is the key word: binding. When you make a binding death nomination, your super fund must follow your instructions, unless there's something dodgy that's happened in the past, but be expected that they must follow your instructions. They don't have discretion, again, pending that there's nothing dodgy and there was no fraud or anything involved. So put that aside, but they have to kind of do what you have told them to do. They can't decide to give it to somebody else, and your wishes are practically locked in. So you might be thinking, Stacy, doesn't my will cover this? Well, great question. The answer is, of course, not necessarily. It depends. Super doesn't automatically form part of your estate. It sits outside of your will or your estate unless you specifically nominate your estate as the beneficiary. This means if you don't have a binding death nomination in place, the super fund trustee gets to decide who receives your super based on their rules and legislation, and that might not align with what you wanted. Now, there are actually a few different types of nominations that you can make. So the first one is a binding death nomination. This is kind of what you might call the gold standard. I just made that up, but it's pretty important. It's legally binding for up to 3 years, after which you need to renew it. Your super fund must pay your benefit to the people or whatever you've nominated, like your estate, on your paperwork. The second one is a non-binding death nomination. This is more kind of like a suggestion. You tell the fund who you'd prefer to receive your super, but the trustee makes the final decision. They'll consider your wishes, but they're not bound by them. The third one is a non-lapsing binding death nomination. Some funds offer this option. It's binding and it does not expire every 3 years. You set it once and it stays in place until you change it or revoke it. But because it's non-lapsing, this isn't ideal if you might need to change it in the future, because it can be really difficult to change something that is not meant to be non-lapsing. So definitely consider your options for this one, unless you're going to make it maybe payable to your estate or something like that. So who can you nominate? It can't just be anyone. The law restricts who can receive your super. So you may be able to nominate your spouse, including any de facto partners, your children, including any adult children and stepchildren, somebody who is financially dependent on you, someone in an interdependency relationship with you, your legal personal representative, e.g., this could be your estate. If you nominate your estate, your super will be distributed then according to your will. So do you need one? Here's where it gets a little bit personal. Let me share why I think binding death nominations are important, especially if you are going through a separation or a divorce. Scenario 1, you're separated, but you're not yet divorced. If you pass away before your divorce is finalized and you haven't updated your binding death nomination, your super could still go to your ex-partner. And it's probably not a day on social media I don't see that this is not happening or is happening. Even if that is the last thing you want, it could still go to your ex. Now, this is a critical update to your nomination, because you need to make sure that this is updated as soon as you separate if you don't want your ex getting your assets. Scenario 2 could be blended families. So if you are in a new relationship and you have children from a prior relationship, a binding death nomination may ensure your super is divided the way you intended. Without it, there could be disputes between your current partner and your kids. Scenario 3, you want control. You've worked all these years to get all of that money in the super. You want to make sure that it is looked after how you want it to be. So if you value certainty and you want to make sure your super goes exactly where you intend it without leaving it up to some random trustee's discretion, then yes, I would strongly suggest you look at getting a binding death nomination. Now, let me share some mistakes I unfortunately see and hear about all the time. Forgetting to update it. Life changes, marriages, separation, new children. Your binding death nomination needs to change with it. Letting it lapse. Most binding nominations expire after 3 years. If you don't renew it, it then becomes non-binding or possibly even invalid. Not checking if it's valid. Some nominations are rejected because they weren't witnessed correctly or because the beneficiaries don't meet the legal requirements. Assuming your will covers it. So as I mentioned, super does sit outside of your estate unless you specifically nominate your estate to be the beneficiary of your super. So if you die without a valid binding death nomination, the super fund trustee decides who gets your super. They will look at things like who your dependents are, what your personal circumstances might be, any non-binding nominations you may have made. This can lead to delays, disputes, and outcomes that you never intended for. I have seen and heard of families being torn apart over super payouts because they could have been avoided with a simple binding death nomination. So the good news, it is not complicated, I promise. So step 1, contact your super fund and ask for their binding death nomination form. Most funds even have them available online. Step 2, decide who you want to nominate and in what proportions. For example, you will want 50% to your spouse and 25% to each of your 2 children, for an example. Step 3, complete the form and have it witnessed by 2 adults who are not beneficiaries, who are over the age of 18 and have sound mind. Step 4, submit it to your super fund and keep a copy for your records. Even put a copy in with your will. Step 5, set a reminder to review it every 3 years or whenever your life circumstances may change. Not all super funds may tell you when your binding death nomination is going to expire. Generally, it says on your super statement, but just make sure that you set the reminder just in case. And look, I get it. Talking about death is not fun, but I really do want to normalize talking about it because obviously I have seen the worst of it. But here's the thing, a binding death nomination is one of the most loving things you can do for your family. It removes uncertainty, it prevents conflict, and ensures your hard-earned super goes exactly where you want it to. And as I've mentioned, if you're going through a separation or a divorce, it is even more critical. Update your nomination now. Do not wait for the divorce to be finalized. And as always, if you need help, navigating separation, property division, or maybe even estate planning during this time, remember I have my program, Empowered Separation. It is your roadmap, your proven roadmap to a smoother, cheaper divorce, and it covers all the legal essentials you need to know, including super and estate planning. You can find out more about how to work with me from the notes in the show notes below. So I know I've been a little bit more about the past couple of episodes talking about death, but I do thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If this episode has helped you, please share it with someone who also needs to hear it, especially if they're going through a separation or they may have a blended family. Remember though, this is general advice only, and you might want to discuss your options with your financial advisor. I can't tell you what to do. I can just give you the instructions as to how to do it. And remember, don't forget to subscribe to my channel on Spotify or Apple Podcasts so you never miss an episode. We are also on YouTube as well. But if you have any questions or topics you would like me to cover, please reach out to me and I will add them on the list of things to do. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. And until next time, remember, I am here to help. You don't have to just survive. I really would love you to thrive. Take care.